In this lesson, you'll learn several strategies to compare fractions, which tells you which fraction is bigger or which is smaller. The three symbols we'll use to show which is bigger or smaller are these three symbols, and you should be quite familiar with these. We're no longer going to call it the alligator mouth. We're going to use these words when describing or when reading these math problems. So this one we say greater than when we see this symbol. And a great way to remember that is the biggest part here is the opening, so you can say it's greater than. This symbol we would call less than. You can read it from left to right. This is the smaller part, so it's less than. And then of course equal to. So I want you to use these three symbols when comparing fractions. Now you're going to hear unlike and like fractions. And when a fraction is unlike, that means that the denominator is not the same. So if you're comparing unlike fractions, the denominator is not the same. When you're comparing like fractions, that means the denominator is the same. Like means it is the same. Okay, if we're comparing fractions that have like denominators, there's three strategies you can use to compare those fractions. Now, the first one is you can use the pictures that the problem or that I give you. Use the pictures that are given. So I've already drawn here pictures. You can see here that 2/8 are colored in and 4/8 are colored in. Again, the denominators, the numbers downstairs, are alike. They're the same. So now you're just going to use the picture. Which one looks bigger? Well, 2/8 looks smaller and 4/8 looks bigger. So we're going to say 2/8 is less than 4/8. Another example, another strategy, look at the numbers. Well, when your fractions have like denominators, when the denominator is the same, compare only the numerators. And I put D for denominator just to shorten it. When the denominator is the same, you'll need to just look at the numerators because those are already the same. So 7 and 6, which is bigger? The 7 is bigger. So 7/10 is greater than 6/10. Another strategy, you can draw your own picture. So let's say you're given 1/4 compared to 3/4. You can draw a picture. You can say, get your circles out. For fourths, circles are easy for fourths and eighths and halves, but probably a bar method would be better for any odd number. So you could also use a bar, draw almost like a fraction bar, draw 2 fraction bars. So if we drew the circles, we would color in 1/4, and for this we would color in 3/4. If we drew the bar method, we would cut it in half again to make fourths. For the 1/4, you color in 1/4, for the 3/4. So here's two pictures you could draw, the circles or the bars. And you can see 1/4 is a lot smaller than 3/4. So 1/4 is less than 3/4. The bigger numerator is a bigger fraction. So let's not forget that. If the numerator is bigger and the denominators are the same, the numerator shows if it's bigger, it shows that it's going to be a bigger fraction. So that you can see is larger than that piece. So don't forget that. Comparing fractions with unlike denominators or denominators that are different. So let's say we have some examples. Here are 3 strategies. Number 1, you can use the pictures. I've drawn pictures for you to use in this example. 2/7 compared to 2/5. Notice the numerators are the same, but the denominators are different. When the numerator is the same, compare only the denominator. You don't need to worry about the numerator because it's the same. So if you use your picture, you'll notice that sevenths are a little bit smaller pieces than the fifths. So the bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. So the bigger number, sevenths, it means it has to break up into smaller pieces. So the larger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. For example, the fraction on a half is, the denominator is 2. In the fraction 1/3, the denominator is 3. So you'll see that bigger the denominator, the smaller, that's a lot smaller than the half, the 2. Okay, so if we use the picture, we can see that 2/5 looks a little bit bigger than 2/7. So 2/7 is less than 2/5. The second strategy, we can use our fraction bars, and I've drawn them out for us. If I have one whole, I traced my whole fraction, and in class you can just use the manipulatives, and I've drawn out 3/4 compared to 3/8. So I've drawn out my 3/4, traced those, and I traced my 3/8. Well, you can see the length 3/4 is much larger than 3/8. So 3/4 is greater than 3/8. The third strategy, you can compare it to benchmarks such as 0, half, and 1. So if you draw a number line, you put your 0 on the number line, your half mark, and your 1 mark. Now this is a little tricky, but it's really cool once you learn how to do it. So let's say we have 4/10. Okay, half of 10 is 5. So this half would be the same as 5/10. Okay, well we know 4/10 is before 5/10, so about here. And then if we look at 4/8, well we know half of 8 is 4. So actually 4/8 is exactly half as well. So 5/10 was half, 4/8 is half. So 4/8 would be right on the half mark. And we can see this one represented 4/10. So 4/8 is bigger. That means 4/10 is less than 4/8. So there's 3 strategies to use for unlike denominators. Oh, and the bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. Don't forget that. Now, if we wanted to compare fractions with both unlike numerators and unlike denominators, this is more common when you have both numbers are different. 3 strategies to use. Number 1, you can draw a picture. So I've written the problem here, the equation, 3/4 compared to 2/8. And I've already drawn my picture. I used the circles. I split it into fourths and I shaded in 3 of them. I drew my circle, split it into 8ths, and shaded in 2 of them. And I already drew it here. I split it into fourths, shaded in 3, split it into 8ths, shaded in 2. So in the bar method or the circle method, you can see that 3/4 is a lot bigger. So 3/4 is greater than 2/8. And you'll notice that the numerator is different and the denominator. You can use your fraction bars if both numbers are different. So let's see, 4/6 compared to 2/4. If I pull out my fraction bars, I put my 1 whole, I traced that for you, and then I traced my 2/4, which is here, and then I traced my 4/6. You can see that 4/6 is a little bit bigger than 2/4. So 4/6 would be greater than 2/4. Now, this is my favorite method, the butterfly method. Alright, so this is called cross multiplying. I call it the butterfly method because you go one way, you cross over, and you're cross multiplying like it looks like a butterfly when you're finished. So a lot of times in class we'll say cross multiply. So let's say we have 5/8 compared to 2/6. the first thing you want to do is cross over. So you draw your first butterfly wing, and that would be 8 times 2. You scooped up 8 and a 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Then you cross over, and you scooped up the 6 and the 5. So 5 times 6 equals, and we know that that's 30. And then you draw your little antennas. And you can see that 30 goes with 5/8, 16 goes with 2/6. So 5/8 would be bigger or greater than 2/6. 5/8 is greater than 2/6. That's the butterfly method. Now, I want you to apply your knowledge. Get out your math notebook, and I want you to solve these 3 equations on your own, and you can use the method of your choice. So complete these in your math notebook, bring them to class tomorrow, and use any method of your choice. Number 1, 5/9 compared to 3/9. Number 2, 4/10 compared to 4/5. And number 3, 8/12 compared to 3/6. Good luck!